Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back, way back, to a place shrouded in mystery, legend, and frankly, a whole lot of silk and secrets. We're going to spend a day, and a bit more, inside the legendary harem of the Ottoman Sultan. Imagine waking up not in your comfy bed, but in a vast, opulent, yet strangely unsettling palace wing, surrounded by hundreds of other women, none of whom you knew just a short while ago. It's a world of immense luxury, yes, but also intense competition, strict rules, and constant observation. You're an odalisque now, a concubine, and your life, your future, everything, hinges on navigating this gilded cage. You probably won't survive this experience in reality. Let's be honest, the odds weren't exactly in everyone's favor, but tonight, you get to live it from the safety of your pillows. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is there right now. It's always wild to think about us all listening together across time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first hint of dawn doesn't creep in through a window you can see. No, you're too deep within the labyrinthine heart of the Topkapi Palace. Instead, it arrives as a subtle shift in the quality of the light filtering through high, distant grilles, and more noticeably, in the sounds. You stir on your mattress, not quite soft by today's standards, but certainly a step up from straw, nestled in a room shared with, well, many others. This isn't a private chamber, not yet anyway. You're one of the newcomers, an Asami, still finding your place in this enormous, echoing structure. The air is cool, perhaps carrying the faint, lingering scent of charcoal from braziers used for warmth, or the sweet, slightly cloying perfume worn by a woman on a more important mission last night. You listen. That's the first thing you learn to do here, listen. The harem isn't silent, not ever. There's the soft rustle of fabric as someone else shifts nearby, a whispered cough from across the room, the distant, rhythmic sweep of a broom on marble floors outside. Footsteps echo, not hurried, but purposeful, belonging to the eunuchs who patrol the corridors even through the night, their presence a constant, silent reminder that you are watched, always. You can hear the gentle splash of water from a nearby fountain in a courtyard you can't see, a surprisingly peaceful sound in this place of constant tension. It's a symphony of the hidden world, a soundtrack to a life lived behind high walls, removed from the bustle of Istanbul outside. Opening your eyes, the room slowly takes shape in the low light. Rows of mattresses like yours, each occupied by a sleeping form. Simple chests or niches for personal belongings, not much, just the essentials. The walls are plain, perhaps whitewashed, a stark contrast to the opulent public areas of the palace you might have glimpsed. This is the barracks, essentially, for the rank and file. Luxury is earned here, not given freely. You pull a thin blanket tighter around you, feeling the chill that permeates the stone structure in the early hours. It's surreal, isn't it? 1 minute you were somewhere else entirely, perhaps a village, a town, even another land, and now you are here, one face among hundreds, maybe thousands, in the Sultan's private domain. It's like being dropped into the most exclusive, least private, and highest stakes reality show imaginable, except the cameras are the eyes of everyone around you, and elimination means, well, let's not dwell on that just yet. The sounds begin to intensify. The rhythmic sweeping becomes more insistent. Distant doors creak open. Hushed voices grow slightly louder as women begin to stir, their movements careful, quiet, so as not to disturb those who might be sleeping later, the favorites, the mothers of princes. Even in waking, the hierarchy is observed. You sit up slowly, stretching muscles stiff from sleeping on the floor. The air feels thick, heavy with the presence of so many people contained within these walls. It's an intimate space, paradoxically, despite its vastness. Every cough, every sigh, every whispered word seems to carry. Historians still argue whether the harem was primarily a place of pleasure, a political tool, or simply the domestic heart of a massive imperial household, and sitting here, feeling the weight of all these lives around you, you can see how it could be all three. You glance around at the other women waking. Some look tired, resigned. Others have a spark in their eyes, perhaps ambition, perhaps just the simple determination to face another day. Most are young, like you. Brought here, purchased or gifted, to serve the Sultan and his dynasty. It's a strange sisterhood, forged not by choice but by circumstance, bound together by shared uncertainty and the unique reality of living within this gilded cage. There's a certain camaraderie that can develop, born of shared hardship and the need for allies in a place where trust is a precious, fragile thing. But there's also competition, a silent, constant hum beneath the surface of daily life. Every woman here is, in theory, a potential favorite, a potential mother of a prince, and that simple fact creates an undercurrent of rivalry that you can feel even before the sun is fully up. It's like a really intense office environment, but your performance review could land you ruling a province or, well, back to that. Let's not dwell. Part. One of the more experienced women, perhaps an older odalisque who has been here longer, catches your eye and gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. It's not a greeting, exactly, more a recognition of shared existence. You nod back, learning the language of subtle gestures that convey so much in a place where loud words can be dangerous. This vast complex, the Sultan's harem, was a carefully designed world within a world. It wasn't just bedrooms, it was a self-contained community with its own baths, kitchens, laundries, hospitals, schools, and even mosques. It was a city unto itself, populated almost entirely by women and the unique class of male guardians, the eunuchs, who managed their lives and guarded the gates. A quirky tidbit, the layout of the harem was incredibly complex, designed not just for security but also to control movement and interaction, with dead ends, hidden passages, and courtyards that served as social hubs but were also easily monitored. Getting lost was probably a daily occurrence for newcomers. Imagine trying to find the communal bathroom in a palace with 400 rooms. As the light grows a little stronger, the first sounds of official activity begin. The quiet sweeping is joined by the clatter of pottery from distant kitchens and the murmur of voices that are no longer hushed whispers but the low tones of women beginning their morning duties. The eunuch's footsteps grow more frequent outside. It's time to rise fully. The day in the harem is strictly scheduled, a routine designed to maintain order among so many individuals and to ensure that the complex machinery of the Sultan's domestic life runs smoothly. There's no hitting the snooze button here. Your new life is about to begin in earnest, starting with the crucial morning rituals that prepare you, physically and mentally, for whatever the day within these walls might bring. You swing your legs over the side of the mattress, feeling the cool stone floor beneath your feet. The air is filled with anticipation, a mixture of apprehension and the faint, ever-present possibility of opportunity. You are awake. You are here. And the day stretches before you, a canvas upon which the intricate, often precarious, dance of harem life will unfold. You swing your legs over the side of the mattress, feeling the cool stone floor beneath your feet, and the air is thick with the scent of damp stone and the rising warmth of bodies. The first, most crucial step in your day isn't prayer, or even breakfast, it's the ritual of cleansing and adornment. Hygiene wasn't just about staying clean, it was a significant part of presenting yourself, maintaining health in close quarters, and frankly, smelling good in an era before modern deodorant was a thing you just rolled on. It was also a social experience, a time for quiet interaction before the structured parts of the day began. You joined the quiet procession of women moving out of the sleeping quarters and down the corridors towards the hammam, the bath complex. The marble floors are cool underfoot, and the sounds of footsteps and hushed voices echo slightly in the grand passages. Sunlight, when you glimpse it through high windows or open courtyards, is still pale and watery. The eunuchs are present, their figures occasionally visible at intersections or standing silently near doorways, ensuring order and preventing any unauthorized detours. Their presence is so constant, you almost stop noticing them, like furniture that occasionally moves. Entering the hammam is like stepping into another world within the harem. It's warm, steamy, and filled with the gentle sounds of splashing water, hushed conversation, and the soft scraping of brushes. The air is heavy with moisture and the scent of soap and rosewater. The hammam wasn't just a single room, it was a series of interconnected chambers designed for different stages of the bathing process. cool rooms for preparation and cooling down, warm rooms for washing, and hot rooms, the harem, for sweating and relaxation. This elaborate structure reflects a widespread cultural emphasis on bathing and cleanliness throughout the Ottoman Empire, not just for luxury, but as a fundamental part of daily life and religious practice. You shed your simple sleeping clothes in the cool room and wrap yourself in a pestimel, a thin cotton or linen wrap. The main bathing area is often a large, domed room with a central heated stone platform, the gobek tesai, where you might lie to relax and sweat. Around the edges are marble basins, *kernes*, with taps for hot and cold water, where you wash. Attendants, often older women or slaves assigned to the task, are available to help scrub your back, wash your hair, or assist if needed. It's a communal experience, far from the private, solitary bath you might be used to. There's a certain vulnerability in being unclothed with so many others, but it's also a place where you can observe, listen, and perhaps exchange a few quiet words with women who aren't immediate rivals. It's like a highly structured, slightly awkward pool party, but everyone is focused on getting clean, not having fun. The process is thorough. Washing with traditional olive oil soaps, sometimes scented with jasmine or other flowers. Rinsing hair, scrubbing skin until it tingles. The sheer scale of the harem meant the bathhouses were large and required a sophisticated water supply system, often involving aqueducts and complex heating mechanisms to provide hot water for hundreds, sometimes thousands, of people daily. Imagine the plumbing bill. A quirky tidbit. Historical accounts mention that special soaps and even clay masks were used, sometimes containing ingredients like honey or crushed pearls for skin brightening, because even in the 17th century, everyone wanted that glow-up. After washing, you move back to a warmer room to dry off. Attendants might bring soft towels. This is where the perfuming begins. Scent was incredibly important. You aren't just clean, you need to smell divine. Rosewater is common, sprayed onto clothes and skin. More expensive perfumes, containing ingredients like ambergris, musk, or oud, would be reserved for women of higher status or those hoping to catch the Sultan's attention. You apply what is available to you, dabbing a little behind your ears and on your wrists. It's a small act of self-care, a way to feel a little more human and perhaps a little more hopeful in this impersonal environment. Then comes the dressing. This isn't just throwing on a t-shirt and jeans. Ottoman clothing, especially for women in the palace, could be elaborate and layered. You start with simple cotton undergarments, including loose trousers, *salver*, and a thin shirt, *gom*. Over this goes the antari, a long robe, often made of silk or fine cotton, tied at the waist. The colors and fabrics you wear might subtly indicate your status, though newcomers wear simpler garments. The process of getting dressed requires some dexterity, especially with the sashes and ties. It feels a bit like putting on a historical costume every morning, except this is just your Tuesday. The whole morning ritual, bathing, drying, perfuming, dressing, takes a significant amount of time. It's not just about personal readiness. It's a controlled activity that helps structure the day and ensures everyone meets a certain standard of appearance. Historians still argue whether the emphasis on beauty and elaborate grooming was primarily a means of enhancing the Sultan's pleasure, a way to keep the women occupied and compliant, or simply a reflection of the era's aesthetic values and the harem's status as the domestic heart of an empire that valued luxury and refinement. Whatever the primary reason, you emerge from the harem feeling clean, scented, and properly dressed, ready to face the next part of the day. Your appearance is now impeccable, at least according to the harem's standards. And looking presentable is the bare minimum. The real challenge is navigating the social currents that begin to swirl the moment you step out of the bathhouse and head towards the morning gathering. You emerge from the harem complex, feeling clean and faintly fragrant, your simple antari robe settled comfortably around you. The cool morning air outside the steamy baths is a pleasant contrast. But the moment of quiet self-containment is over. Now, it's time to join the flow, the collective movement towards the next scheduled activity, breakfast. This isn't a leisurely affair with croissants and coffee. It's a functional necessity, A communal gathering where the harem's rigid social order is on full display, even before the main business of the day begins. You follow the stream of women, their movements quiet and practiced. The corridors leading to the dining areas are wide but can feel crowded with so many people moving at once. There's a low hum of murmurs, the soft swish of fabric, and the occasional, slightly louder voice of a Kalfa or Usta, women who hold positions of authority within the harem hierarchy. As a newcomer, an Assami, you know your place is near the bottom. This means eating with the other novices and lower-ranking odalisks, in a designated area separate from the higher-status women. It's like being assigned to the kids' table at a massive, slightly terrifying family reunion, except the stakes are much higher than just getting stuck next to Uncle Gary. The dining area for the rank and file is large and relatively Spartan compared to the opulent halls elsewhere in the palace. Long, low tables are set up, or sometimes food is simply laid out on large trays placed on the floor, around which women gather, sitting on cushions. The air is filled with the scent of warm bread, maybe some stew or soup from the palace kitchens, and the ever-present underlying aroma of spices. It's basic, nourishing food designed to fuel hundreds of people, not necessarily gourmet dining. Think hearty, not fancy. You find a spot among the other asmis. There's a quiet efficiency to the process. Attendants, often younger slaves or women assigned to kitchen duties, bring around large platters or bowls. You take your portion, careful not to take too much or too little, acutely aware of the eyes around you. The food might consist of thick bread, perhaps some olives, cheese, a simple vegetable stew, or a bowl of soup. Meat might be less common for the daily morning meal at this level, reserved for special occasions or higher ranks. It's sustenance, not a feast. The real meal here isn't just the food, it's the observation. This is a prime time to gauge the mood of the harem, to see who is interacting with whom, to pick up on subtle shifts in alliances or status. The higher-ranking women, the gozdes, favorites, the iqbals, concubines with higher status, and especially the kalfas and ustas who manage daily life, eat separately, often in smaller, more comfortable rooms, serve better food. You can sometimes see them or their attendants passing by, a visual reminder of the levels you might aspire to climb. Their clothing is finer, their movements more confident. It's a masterclass in nonverbal communication and social stratification, all happening over a bowl of lukewarm soup. Conversation at your level is typically subdued. Loud talking is discouraged. You might exchange quiet greetings or whispers with the women immediately next to you, perhaps commenting on the food or the weather, if you can even tell what the weather is doing outside these walls. But mostly, you eat quickly and observe. The eunuchs are present here too, patrolling the periphery of the dining areas, their gaze sweeping over the assembled women. They aren't usually joining the meal, but their presence ensures that order is maintained and that no inappropriate conversations or behaviors occur. It's like having a stern, silent chaperone watching you eat every single bite. The speed of the meal is dictated by the schedule. Breakfast isn't a lingering affair, it's a necessary step before the day's lessons and duties begin. As soon as the main part of the meal is finished, attendants start clearing away the dishes with practiced efficiency. There's no dawdling, no scrolling through your phone at the table, obviously. You finish your portion, clean your hands as best you can, and prepare to rise. This communal meal highlights a mainstream historical fact about the harem. It functioned like a massive, highly structured household, and feeding its inhabitants was a significant logistical challenge. The palace kitchens were enormous operations, employing hundreds of people just to prepare meals for the sultan, his family, the harem women, the eunuchs, and the vast retinue of servants and officials. A quirky tidbit about harem meals: while the lower ranks ate relatively simple fare, the sultan's table and the meals served to his favorites could be incredibly elaborate, featuring dozens of dishes, rare spices, and imported delicacies. Imagine the food envy. You're eating yesterday's leftovers, and someone down the hall is having peacock. Historians still argue whether the strict segregation during meals and other daily activities was primarily about maintaining control and preventing communication that could lead to plots, or if it was simply a practical necessity for managing such a large population according to established social ranks. Perhaps it was both. From your perspective, sitting on the floor and eating a simple meal, it feels very much like the hierarchy is being reinforced with every spoonful. As the meal winds down, the energy in the room shifts. The quiet, focused eating gives way to a slight restlessness as women anticipate the next part of the day. For newcomers like you, the morning's schedule is dominated by education. The harem wasn't just a place of confinement, it was also a school. The Sultan's concubines were expected to be accomplished, capable of entertaining him, engaging in conversation, and potentially managing households or even governing if they rose high enough. So, after breakfast, you don't get free time to wander the gardens, not yet, anyway. You head to class. The early orders for you are simple: report for your lessons. The path is clear, the expectations are set, and the opportunity to climb the ladder begins not with beauty or favor, but with learning the skills deemed essential for advancement in this unique world. You stand up, dust off your robe, and join the stream of women moving towards the schoolrooms, the subtle scent of last night's charcoal fires mingling with the aroma of breakfast still lingering in the air. You stand up, dusting off your robe, and join the stream of women moving away from the dining area. The air, still carrying the scent of breakfast, now feels charged with a different kind of energy, anticipation, perhaps a little anxiety. For many, especially the newcomers, the morning isn't filled with chores or social calls, but with lessons. The harem wasn't just a place for relaxation or intrigue. It was also a school, a place where you were trained, refined, and equipped with the skills necessary to potentially advance. Think of it as finishing school, but with much higher stakes and significantly less parental oversight, unless you count the Sultan, which you don't. You follow the flow towards a different wing of the palace, quieter perhaps than the bustling kitchen areas, but filled with a different kind of sound, the soft strumming of a stringed instrument, the murmur of voices reciting, the scratch of pens on paper. These are the schoolrooms, dedicated spaces where women were taught various disciplines considered essential for life within the palace and potentially beyond. As a newcomer, your education begins with the basics, but the curriculum for those who showed aptitude, or who were higher up the ladder, could be surprisingly comprehensive. You enter a room that feels more formal than the sleeping quarters or dining hall. There might be low tables or desks, cushions for seating, and perhaps shelves lined with scrolls or books. The teachers aren't usually eunuchs, but often older, educated women from within the harem itself, or sometimes even external tutors brought in specifically for their expertise, though their interaction with the students would be strictly chaperoned, usually by a eunuch. It's a classroom setting, but steeped in the traditions and unique pressures of the imperial court. Your lessons might begin with language. Ottoman Turkish is essential, of course, the language of the court and daily life. But depending on your background and potential, you might also learn Persian or Arabic. Persian was the language of poetry, literature, and diplomacy, while Arabic was crucial for understanding religious texts and Islamic scholarship. Imagine trying to learn 3 languages at once while also navigating palace politics. Definitely harder than Rosetta Stone. You practice pronunciation, learn vocabulary, and perhaps begin to read and write using the complex Ottoman script. The ability to communicate effectively, especially in multiple languages, was a valuable asset, allowing you to engage with the Sultan on a deeper level, or even serve as a translator or secretary if you rose high enough. Then there are the arts. Music was incredibly important in the harem. You might learn to play an instrument like the canon, a type of zither, or the oud, a lute-like instrument, or perhaps focus on vocal training. Singing and playing music were highly prized skills, often performed for the Sultan's entertainment in his private chambers or during harem gatherings. Learning music wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about understanding complex rhythms and melodies, expressing emotion, and contributing to the refined atmosphere of the court. It's like being in a band, but your audience is the absolute monarch and your bandmates are also your competition. Poetry was another cornerstone of harem education. You would study classical Persian and Ottoman poetry, learning to appreciate its nuances, memorize verses, and perhaps even compose your own. Poetry was a form of communication, an expression of feeling, and a way to engage with the intellectual and cultural life of the empire. Reciting poetry could captivate the Sultan and demonstrate your wit and sensibility. It was like the TikTok of its day, but instead of dance challenges, it was all about rhyming couplets about unrequited love or the beauty of nature. Other skills were also taught: calligraphy, considered a high art form, embroidery and fine needlework, useful for creating beautiful garments or decorative items, and depending on your potential role, perhaps even basic arithmetic or lessons in household management and etiquette. The goal was to produce accomplished, well-rounded women who could be intelligent companions for the Sultan, manage complex households, and uphold the prestige of the dynasty. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman harem had a highly structured educational system with dedicated teachers and a curriculum that went far beyond simply preparing women for sexual service. It aimed to cultivate intellectual and artistic skills. The atmosphere in the schoolrooms is focused but also subtly competitive. You watch the other women, noting who is excelling, who is struggling. Your progress in these lessons is monitored, and reports on your aptitude and diligence would likely make their way up the hierarchy. Doing well here could bring you to the attention of the Kalfas or Ustas, marking you as someone with potential. It's the harem equivalent of getting good grades and hoping to get into a prestigious university. A quirky tidbit: while much of the focus was on traditional arts and languages, there are mentions in some historical sources of women in the harem also learning skills like chess, backgammon, and other games, which were popular forms of entertainment and also required strategic thinking. Imagine intense chess tournaments happening behind the scenes, with the winner getting extra dessert or something. Historians still argue whether the primary purpose of this extensive education was genuinely to empower the women within the harem by providing them with valuable skills and knowledge, or if it was primarily a means of making them more attractive, entertaining, and useful to the Sultan and the imperial household, thus reinforcing their role as possessions rather than independent individuals. From your perspective, diligently practicing your calligraphy or struggling with Persian grammar, it feels like both a chance to gain skills, yes, but skills whose value is entirely defined by how they might please or serve the powers that be. The morning passes in a blur of lessons. Your mind is stretched, trying to absorb new words, new melodies, new ways of seeing the world. It's tiring, but also offers a sense of purpose beyond the simple routine of waking and eating. It's a reminder that this gilded cage, while restrictive, also offers avenues for personal development and, more importantly, for potential advancement. As the lessons wind down, the focus shifts from intellectual pursuits to the social landscape of the harem. The next part of the day involves navigating the courtyards and common areas, where the real, often unspoken, lessons in power, alliances, and survival take place, under the watchful eyes of everyone around you. With the scrolls put away and the melodies fading, the structured intensity of the morning lessons gives way to a different kind of environment, the courtyards. Stepping out of the schoolrooms and into one of the harem's many internal courtyards is a welcome change. The air is fresher, carrying the scent of earth, greenery, and perhaps the distant aroma from the kitchens. Sunlight, finally, falls directly upon you, warming your skin after hours spent indoors. The sounds here are different too: the gentle splash of fountains, the rustling of leaves, the occasional chirping of birds that have found their way into this enclosed world. These courtyards are the lungs of the harem, providing light, air, and a space for women to move and socialize outside the confines of rooms and corridors. They vary in size and design, from small, intimate gardens with a single fountain to larger, more formal spaces designed for strolling or gathering. For the women of the harem, especially those not holding high office or tied to specific duties, time in the courtyard is a regular part of the afternoon routine. It's a chance to stretch your legs, breathe fresh air, and perhaps most importantly, engage in the complex, subtle dance of harem social life. You walk slowly, observing. The courtyard is populated by dozens, sometimes hundreds of women. Some sit on marble benches or cushions placed in shaded alcoves, engaged in quiet conversation. Others stroll along paved paths, often in pairs or small groups. The visual hierarchy is still apparent, though perhaps less rigidly enforced than during meals or lessons. Higher-ranking women might have preferred spots, perhaps near a particularly beautiful fountain or beneath a fragrant orange tree. Their robes might be richer, their jewelry more prominent, signaling their status even in this relatively relaxed setting. For newcomers like you, this is a crucial learning ground. It's here, amidst the rustling silk and the murmur of voices, that the real lessons of the harem are taught and learned, the lessons of observation, alliance building, and navigating the intricate web of relationships. Conversation is typically quiet, often bordering on whispers, especially when discussing anything sensitive. The topics range from the mundane, the quality of the food, the weather, if you can perceive it, the latest styles of dress, to the potentially dangerous gossip. Who was seen talking to whom? Has the Sultan summoned anyone new recently? What is the mood of the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's powerful mother? Gossip in the harem isn't just idle chatter, it's a form of intelligence gathering. Information is power, and knowing who is in favor, who is out of favor, who is aligned with whom, is vital for survival and potential advancement. You listen intently, piecing together fragments of conversation, watching facial expressions, noting who avoids whose gaze. It's like being perpetually stuck in the most dramatic parts of a historical reality show, where every side-eye and whispered comment could mean something significant. You learn to read between the lines, to understand what isn't being said as much as what is. Sharing a piece of useful information, or receiving one, can forge a temporary bond, an alliance built on shared risk and mutual benefit. The eunuchs are, of course, present here too. They patrol the edges of the courtyards, stand near entrances, or sometimes even sit in designated spots, their presence a constant reminder that this isn't truly private time. Their job is to maintain order, enforce rules, and prevent unauthorized interactions or dangerous plotting. Their eyes seem to miss nothing. You learn to be discreet, to lower your voice, to keep your expressions neutral, and to avoid conversations that might draw their attention. It's like trying to have a private chat with your friends while your strict parents are lurking just out of earshot, except your parents have swords and significant authority. Forming connections is essential. While competition is ever present, finding a few trusted individuals with whom you can share observations and offer support is crucial. These might be women who arrived at the same time as you, or perhaps an older odalisque who takes a quiet interest in guiding newcomers. These friendships are fragile, however, always tested by the underlying rivalry and the possibility that a friend might one day become a rival for the Sultan's attention. It's a delicate balance between seeking allies and protecting yourself. A mainstream historical fact about the harem courtyards is that they were often meticulously designed and maintained, filled with a variety of plants, flowers, and fruit trees, reflecting the Ottoman love of nature and garden design. These weren't just empty spaces. They were intended to be beautiful, tranquil environments within the palace. A quirky tidbit is that specific types of fragrant flowers, like roses, jasmine, and hyacinths, were particularly favored, not just for their beauty but also because their scents were believed to have calming or even aphrodisiac qualities, fitting for the harem's atmosphere. Historians still argue whether the courtyards, despite their apparent openness, were primarily designed for genuine relaxation and social interaction among the women, or if their layout and the constant presence of eunuchs made them just another carefully controlled space primarily intended for surveillance and managing the population. From your perspective, sitting on a cool marble bench, listening to the whispers and the splash of the fountain, it feels like a bit of both, a moment of relative freedom and natural beauty, but one always underscored by the awareness of being watched and the ever-present undercurrent of social maneuvering. As the afternoon wears on, the light in the courtyard shifts, growing softer and more golden. The pace of activity might slow slightly, or perhaps shift towards preparations for the evening. You've spent valuable time observing, listening, and perhaps exchanging a few guarded words. You haven't just learned about the harem's social structure from abstract rules, you've seen it in action, felt its pressure. The next phase of the day will likely involve more specific duties, perhaps related to maintaining the household, assisting higher-ranking women, or preparing for the possibility, however remote for a newcomer, of being noticed by someone who matters. The time in the courtyard, while seemingly leisurely, was another vital lesson in the art of survival within these gilded walls. As you leave the courtyard, the gentle sounds of the fountain and birds fade, replaced once again by the echoing acoustics of the palace corridors. And as you navigate these passages, you become acutely aware of the figures who are perhaps the most constant, and certainly the most enigmatic, presence in your daily life within the harem, the eunuchs. They are the silent guardians, the intermediaries, the men who hold immense power despite their unique, often marginalized status. You've seen them since you arrived, patrolling the sleeping quarters at dawn, overseeing movement to the hammam, standing watch during breakfast and in the courtyards. Now, as you move towards the afternoon's activities, your interaction with them becomes more direct, though rarely conversational in the way you might understand it. They are hard to miss, not just because of their distinctive appearance, but because they seem to be everywhere. Dressed in specific uniforms that distinguish them from other palace servants, their presence is a constant, visual reminder of the boundaries of this world. The harem is a realm of women, yes, but it is managed and controlled by men who are, by definition, outsiders to the traditional male hierarchy of the empire. This paradoxical position gives them unique authority. They are the bridge between the secluded female world and the male world outside, the only men, besides the Sultan himself, and sometimes young princes before puberty, allowed free access to the harem's inner sanctums. It's like having hall monitors who also run the school and report directly to the principal, a principal who also happens to be the king. There were generally two groups of eunuchs in the top-copy palace harem, the white eunuchs and, more prominently within the harem itself, the black eunuchs. While white eunuchs often held administrative roles outside the harem or in other parts of the palace, the black eunuchs, often brought from Africa, became the primary guardians and administrators of the harem proper. Their chief, the Kisler Aga, chief black eunuch, could become one of the most powerful figures in the entire empire, controlling access to the Sultan's ear through the harem, managing vast sums of money, and influencing appointments. Imagine having a boss whose job title literally means chief of the girls, and who could also get your uncle fired from his job in the provinces. Your daily interactions with them are typically formal and brief. You don't chat about your day or ask for advice. They issue instructions, maintain discipline, escort women from one area to another, and deliver messages. Their faces are often impassive, their movements deliberate. You learn to respond quickly and respectfully to their commands, to step aside in the corridors, to never challenge their authority. They are the enforcers of the harem's rules, and transgressing those rules under their watch can have serious consequences. Their power comes not just from their position, but from their direct line to the Sultan and the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, who often relied heavily on the chief black eunuch to manage her household and affairs. They control access to everything and everyone within the harem. Want to send a message to a relative outside? It goes through a eunuch. Need something from the palace stores? A eunuch facilitates it. Hoping to catch the eye of a higher-ranking woman or even, potentially, the Sultan? The eunuchs are the gatekeepers. They decide who goes where, when, and sometimes even who gets presented for potential selection by the Sultan. This control over information and movement made them invaluable, and also potentially dangerous. They could be bribed, manipulated, or become powerful allies, or formidable enemies. It's like they ran the palace's internal post office, security system, and talent agency all at once. A mainstream historical fact about the eunuchs in the Ottoman harem is that they were often highly educated and trusted administrators. Far from being simple guards, many rose to positions of significant influence, managing the harem's vast economy, overseeing its staff, and acting as confidential advisors to the Sultan and the Valide Sultan. Their unique position, outside the traditional family and political structures, made them seem more loyal and less likely to build independent power bases that could challenge the Sultan, although their own collective power could be immense. Their lives were complex. While they held authority, they were also, in a sense, prisoners of the palace themselves, bound to its service. They had their own hierarchy, their own living quarters, often near the harem entrance, and their own complex social world. Some grew incredibly wealthy and powerful, others remained lower-level servants. A quirky tidbit is that some eunuchs, particularly the powerful chief black eunuchs, accumulated immense personal fortunes through their control of harem finances and gifts, and upon their death, their wealth often reverted to the imperial treasury. Talk about a job with great benefits, assuming you don't mind the whole, Historians still argue whether the reliance on eunuchs in the harem was primarily a practical solution to managing a large, secluded female population while maintaining the sultan's privacy and security, or if it was also a symbolic assertion of the sultan's absolute power and control over his household, using individuals who were literally and figuratively outside the norms of society. From your perspective, watching a eunuch stride purposefully down the corridor, his expression unreadable, it feels like a potent combination of control, security, and a constant, low-level intimidation. You learn to be respectful, even deferential, but also to observe them. Which eunuchs seem more approachable? Which ones are known to be strict? Are there rivalries among them? Just as you navigate the female social landscape, you must also learn to navigate the world of the eunuchs, understanding that they hold the keys to much of what happens within these walls. They are the silent operators of the harem's intricate machinery, and interacting with them, however minimally, is a fundamental part of your daily existence. You continue on your way, perhaps heading towards an assigned duty or another communal area, acutely aware of the watchful eyes that follow your movement. The next part of your journey in the harem involves understanding where you fit into the overall structure, the rigid hierarchy that defines every interaction and every possibility within this gilded cage. As you continue your journey through the harem's corridors, perhaps on your way to an assigned duty or simply back to the communal areas, the awareness of the eunuch's watchful eyes is constant, but it's not the only pressure you feel. There's another, ever-present force that shapes every interaction, every movement, every hope you might harbor, the rigid, complex social hierarchy of the harem itself. You are not just a woman living in the sultan's palace, you are a specific rank within a carefully structured system, and understanding your place, and the potential paths to move within it, is fundamental to your survival. It's like being in a company with hundreds of employees, but the only way to get a promotion is to literally catch the CEO's eye and maybe have his baby. You entered this world at the very bottom rung. You are an asami, a novice, a newcomer. Your status is the lowest, your privileges minimal. You share sleeping quarters, eat the simplest food, and your days are filled with basic training and potentially menial tasks. Everyone outranks you, from the lowliest servant who has been here longer to the most powerful woman in the palace. The women who arrived before you, even if only by a few months, already possess a crucial advantage: knowledge of the system, potential connections, and a slightly higher place in the pecking order. It's like being the absolute intern of the intern pool. Above the asmas are the odalisks proper. This is the general term for the concubines who served within the harem. While the term is sometimes used loosely, within the harem's internal structure, it signified women who had moved beyond the initial novice stage and were integrated into the harem's service, potentially trained in skills, but who had not yet caught the sultan's attention in a significant way. They performed various duties, from assisting higher-ranking women to working in the laundries, kitchens, or sewing rooms. Life at this level is one of routine, service, and the constant, quiet hope that something, someday, might change your trajectory. The possibility of change comes with the sultan's notice. If the sultan selected an odalisk for a night in his chambers, her status immediately changed. She might become a gozda, meaning the favorite, or the one in the eye. This wasn't necessarily a permanent rank, and there could be multiple gozdas at any given time. A gozda received better living quarters, finer clothing, more generous allowances, and servants of her own. Her life became centered around the possibility of further summons from the sultan and, crucially, the hope of bearing him a child. It's like getting a significant promotion and a fancy corner office. But your job security depends entirely on your boss's mood swings and whether you can deliver a specific, high-stakes project. If a gozda was summoned repeatedly and found consistent favor, she might be elevated to the rank of Iqbal, meaning the fortunate one, or the one with luck. Iqbals were higher in status than gozdas, though still below the official wives. They had more established positions, larger retinues of servants, and greater influence. Their primary goal was often to secure their position further by bearing a child, especially a son. The highest rank a concubine could achieve was that of Kaden, meaning woman, or wife. These were the official consorts of the Sultan, limited in number, usually 4, though this varied over time. A Kaden held immense prestige and power, with luxurious apartments, large staffs, and significant allowances. Their position was relatively secure, especially if they had borne the Sultan a child, but even at this level, political maneuvering and rivalry were constant. The chief Kaden was often the most powerful, sometimes holding the title of Ba Kaden, chief wife. Becoming a Kaden was the ultimate achievement for a concubine, a transformation from purchased slave to a powerful figure in the imperial household. It's the equivalent of climbing from the mailroom to the executive suite, complete with a golden parachute. And towering above even the Kadens was the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother. She was the most powerful woman in the harem and often a significant political force in the empire. The Valide Sultan had her own vast apartments, her own extensive staff, and controlled the harem's internal administration and finances. She was the matriarch, the advisor to the Sultan, and the ultimate authority within the harem walls. Her favor was sought by everyone, from the lowliest Assami to the highest-ranking Kaden. Her power could make or break careers, and even lives. Getting on her bad side? Probably worse than getting fired by the Valide Sultan of all mothers. Climbing this ladder was incredibly difficult and depended on a confluence of factors: beauty, talent, in music, poetry, conversation, intelligence, political acumen, the ability to forge alliances, the patronage of powerful figures, like the Valide Sultan or influential eunuchs, and sheer, undeniable luck. For most women, the climb never happened. They remained odalisks, living out their lives in service within the palace, their days a routine of duties and communal living. The vast majority never even met the Sultan, let alone spent a night in his chambers. Your daily life is a constant negotiation of this hierarchy. You defer to those above you, issue quiet instructions to those below, once you've been here long enough to have someone below you, and observe everyone. You learn the subtle cues of status: how someone walks, where they sit, the quality of their clothing, the number of attendants they have. It's a world where every interaction is potentially a test, every conversation a strategic move. A mainstream historical fact about the harem hierarchy is that it was incredibly formalized, with specific ranks, titles, and protocols governing interactions and privileges. This wasn't a free-for-all. It was a highly structured institution. A quirky tidbit about advancement: while beauty and the Sultan's favor were key, demonstrating administrative competence or particular skills could also lead to promotion within the harem's internal management structure, separate from becoming a consort. Women could rise to become kalfas, mistresses, supervisors, or ustas, masters, higher-level supervisors, who managed specific areas like the laundries, treasuries, or even the educational system. So, you could become a powerful manager even if you never caught the Sultan's eye romantically. It was like a parallel career track based on pure management skills. Historians still argue whether the possibility of rising through the harem ranks, from enslaved concubine to powerful consort or administrator, offered genuine social mobility for women who would otherwise have had none, or if the system primarily served to reinforce the Sultan's power and control by making advancement entirely dependent on his will and the internal palace structure, offering limited true autonomy. From your perspective, standing as a humble Assami, the possibility of climbing feels both impossibly distant and the only real source of hope in this gilded cage. Every lesson learned, every subtle observation made in the courtyard, every respectful interaction with a eunuch or a higher-ranking woman, is a small step in the long, unlikely journey up that ladder. Your place is defined by it, and your future, however uncertain, hinges entirely on navigating its treacherous rungs. You've spent the morning learning, observing, and navigating the intricate layers of harem society, understanding where you stand on that precarious ladder. But beneath the routine of lessons, meals, and social maneuvering, there's a constant, low-level hum of anticipation. It's the possibility, however remote for a newcomer, of the Sultan's call. Everything in the harem, ultimately, revolves around the Sultan. His presence, his desires, his decisions are the sun around which this entire world orbits. And the chance, the tiny, glittering chance, that he might choose you for a night in his private chambers is the silent engine driving ambition, jealousy, and hope within these walls. It's the ultimate lottery ticket, except instead of winning a mansion, you might just become the mother of the next emperor, or, well, let's stick to the positive possibilities for now. For most women, this call never comes. They live out their lives in service, valuable members of the imperial household, but their path doesn't intersect personally with the Sultan's. But for some, for the fortunate few, the day arrives when a message comes, usually delivered by a eunuch, that the Sultan wishes for your presence. This isn't a casual invitation like, "Hey, Netflix and chill tonight?" This is a summons that changes everything, at least for that moment, and potentially forever. The preparation for this possibility is both a constant state of readiness and a specific, elaborate ritual if the summons actually arrives. You are always expected to be presentable, clean, and appropriately dressed according to your rank. But if selected, the preparations intensify dramatically. It begins with another trip to the hammam, not a communal bath this time, but a more private, thorough cleansing. You would be bathed with special, fragrant soaps, perhaps containing rare oils and perfumes. Your hair would be washed and carefully styled. The aim is not just cleanliness, but to be utterly, intoxicatingly fragrant and visually perfect. It's like getting ready for the most important first date of your life, but your date is the emperor of a vast empire, and the stakes are literally historical. After the bath, the adornment begins. You wouldn't wear your simple daily robe. Special garments would be brought, often made of the finest silk, embroidered with gold or silver thread, perhaps in vibrant colors. Jewelry, more elaborate than what you might wear daily, would be added: earrings, necklaces, bracelets, perhaps even delicate headpieces. Your hands and feet might be decorated with henna. Makeup would be applied, enhancing your features according to the beauty standards of the time, perhaps kohl around the eyes, rouge on the cheeks, and color on the lips. Every detail is carefully considered, every layer of silk and every dab of perfume designed to enhance your beauty and captivate the Sultan's senses. It's an art form, a transformation from an ordinary, though still beautiful, woman into a vision fit for an emperor's private viewing. The eunuchs play a crucial role in this preparation. They oversee the process, ensure everything is done correctly, and maintain order and discretion. They would escort you from your quarters to the hammam, then to the room where you are dressed and adorned, and finally, when the time comes, to the Sultan's private apartments. Their presence during this highly personal ritual might seem strange to modern sensibilities, but it was part of the controlled environment, ensuring that the process was conducted according to protocol, and that the woman arrived at the Sultan's chambers without incident or unauthorized interaction. Imagine having a chaperone watch you get dressed for a party. Now imagine that chaperone is a burly guy with a sword. The journey to the Sultan's private quarters, the Hunker Derisi, is a walk filled with immense tension. You would be escorted by eunuchs, likely down corridors you have never seen before, through doors that are usually closed. The harem is vast, and the Sultan's private apartments were often located in a secluded section, accessible only to him and those he summoned. The closer you get, the more opulent the surroundings become: finer tiles, more elaborate decoration, perhaps guards standing silently outside doors. The air might change, becoming warmer, scented with expensive incense. Your heart would pound with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. Will he like you? Will you say the right thing? Will this night fulfill the hopes that have been nurtured since you arrived? A mainstream historical fact about the preparation for the Sultan's call is that it was highly standardized and overseen by senior harem staff, including the Valide Sultan, if she was involved in the selection, and the chief black eunuch. The process was designed to ensure that the woman presented to the Sultan was not only beautiful and clean but also properly prepared in terms of etiquette and appearance, reflecting the dignity of the imperial court. The selection process itself varied over time and depending on the Sultan. Sometimes the Valide Sultan or a senior Khalfa might recommend women. Sometimes the Sultan might see a woman in the courtyard or performing a duty and express interest. There's a popular image of the Sultan dropping a handkerchief, on his chosen one, but this is largely considered a myth, a romanticized European invention. The reality was likely more formal, involving lists, recommendations, and messages delivered through the eunuchs. A quirky tidbit is that some accounts suggest that women selected for the Sultan's chambers would walk down a specific corridor lined with other harem women, who would watch her pass, a public, within the harem, acknowledgement of her potential good fortune and a moment of intense scrutiny and quiet jealousy or support. Talk about a nerve-wracking walk of fame! Historians still argue whether the system of selecting concubines for the Sultan was primarily based on genuine affection and personal preference, or if it was largely a political act, influenced by the Valide Sultan, powerful eunuchs, and the need to produce heirs, turning personal encounters into strategic moves within the palace power game. From your perspective, walking down that corridor, real or imagined, adorned in silks and perfumes, your future hanging in the balance, it feels intensely personal and terrifyingly political all at once. The possibility of this night, of being chosen, is the undercurrent that runs through the harem. It's why you study diligently in lessons, why you observe carefully in the courtyard, why you try to curry favor with the calphas and eunuchs. It's the potential payoff for a life of confinement and competition. And as the day progresses, and the evening draws closer, the possibility, however slim, feels more palpable. You are prepared as you can be. Clean, scented, dressed in your finest, or the finest available to you. The waiting is the hardest part, that quiet, anxious period where you simply exist, hoping for a summons that might change everything, or dreading its arrival, or perhaps simply resigned to its unlikelihood. The day has been a journey through the harem's structures, its routines, its power dynamics. Now, as darkness begins to fall, the focus narrows to the most central, most unpredictable element of all, the Sultan himself, and the chance that your life might intersect with his in the most intimate and significant way. You've spent the day navigating the harem's routines, absorbing lessons, observing the intricate social dance in the courtyards, and feeling the constant presence of the eunuchs and the weight of the hierarchy. But as the afternoon light softens and the palace begins to settle into its evening rhythm, that underlying hum of anticipation grows louder. It's the quiet knowledge that any evening, this evening, you could be summoned. For most, it's a distant dream, a faint possibility that colors their thoughts. For a select few, it becomes a sudden, heart-stopping reality. The possibility of the Sultan's call isn't just a concept, it's the pivotal point around which many lives here revolve, the ultimate test and the ultimate opportunity. The summons doesn't usually come with fanfare. It's often a quiet message delivered by a eunuch to a senior caliph, who then informs the chosen woman. Imagine being told, "Hey, the boss wants to see you, really wants to see you, in his private office, tonight." Your stomach would probably do a backflip worthy of an Olympic gymnast. For you, as a newcomer, the chances are statistically minuscule, bordering on zero. The Sultan has hundreds, maybe thousands, of women available. Why would he pick you, the Assami who just arrived and is still trying to remember where the hammam is? And yet, the possibility exists, however remote, and you are always expected to be ready. Being ready doesn't just mean being clean and appropriately dressed in your daily wear. If the summons comes, the preparation ritual is elaborate, specific, and designed to transform you. It begins with a special trip to the bathhouse. Not the communal hammam you visited this morning, but a smaller, perhaps more private one, reserved for this specific purpose or for higher-ranking women. You are bathed meticulously, not just for hygiene, but for purification and adornment. Attendants use the finest soaps, often made with olive oil and scented with exotic perfumes like ambergris or musk. Your hair is washed with fragrant washes and carefully dried and styled. The water itself might be infused with rosewater or orange blossoms. The goal is to make you smell utterly captivating, a walking bouquet of expensive scents. It's like getting ready for a red carpet event, but the only camera is the Sultan's discerning eye, and your entire future could depend on whether he likes your look and your fragrance profile. After the bath comes the dressing and adornment, a process overseen by senior calphas and eunuchs. You wouldn't wear your simple antari. Luxurious garments are brought out, robes made of the finest silks, velvets, or brocades, perhaps in rich jewel tones or shimmering fabrics, embroidered with gold or silver thread. Layers might be involved, adding to the sense of opulence and mystery. The specific style and richness of the clothing would be appropriate for the occasion, signaling your potential elevation from the ranks. Jewelry is added, not just simple pieces, but perhaps necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and rings set with precious stones. Your hands and feet might be adorned with intricate henna patterns, a traditional form of beautification. Makeup is applied to enhance your features, kohl to deepen the eyes, subtle colors on the lips and cheeks. Every detail is considered, every piece of fabric and jewelry carefully chosen to present you in the most beautiful and alluring light. It's a complete transformation, turning the simple Asami into a vision of imperial beauty, ready to stand before the emperor. Imagine the pressure of trying to look effortlessly stunning while a committee of experienced women critiques your eyeliner application. The eunuchs are central to this entire process. They deliver the summons, escort you to the bath, oversee the dressing, and most importantly, they will escort you to the Sultan's private chambers. Their presence ensures that the ritual is performed correctly, that you don't deviate from the path, and that no unauthorized contact or communication occurs. They are the silent, watchful guardians of this crucial transition, ensuring that the woman presented to the Sultan is exactly who is expected, and that she arrives without incident. Their impassive faces give nothing away, adding to the tension of the moment. The journey to the Sultan's private apartments, the Hunker Derisi, is perhaps the most nerve-wracking part. You would be escorted by one or more eunuchs, often down corridors you've never seen, through sections of the palace accessible only to the most privileged. The harem is vast, and the Sultan's personal wing was a secluded sanctuary within it, designed for privacy and security. As you walk, the surroundings become increasingly opulent, walls covered in exquisite Iznik tiles, ceilings painted with intricate patterns, floors covered in fine carpets. The air might grow warmer, scented with expensive incense burning in decorative braziers. The sounds of the main harem fade away, replaced by the soft padding of your own silk-clad feet and the quiet, purposeful steps of your eunuch escorts. Your heart pounds in your chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. Every step is heavy with significance. You are leaving the communal world of the harem behind, at least for this night, and entering the private world of the Sultan. You rehearse in your mind the etiquette you've been taught, how to enter, how to bow, how to speak only when spoken to, how to comport yourself with grace and humility, while also projecting confidence and charm. It's a delicate balance, like trying to be both incredibly impressive and completely subservient at the same time. A mainstream historical fact about the preparation for the Sultan's call is that it wasn't a random or chaotic process. It was a highly formalized ritual, overseen by the most senior women in the harem, such as the Valide Sultan or the head Khalfa, and executed with military precision by the eunuch staff. This ensured that the woman presented to the Sultan met all the required standards of cleanliness, beauty, and decorum, reflecting the order and prestige of the imperial court. There's a quirky tidbit about this journey. According to some historical accounts and palace traditions, the woman chosen would sometimes walk down a specific corridor or through a courtyard where other harem women might be gathered, watching her pass. This public, within the harem community, procession was a moment of intense scrutiny, a silent acknowledgement of her potential good fortune, and for the onlookers, a mix of silent jealousy, hope, or perhaps even genuine support for one of their own. Imagine walking a gauntlet of hundreds of silent, watching faces, knowing exactly what this walk means. Historians still argue whether the elaborate preparation and presentation of women to the Sultan was primarily a genuine expression of aesthetic appreciation and royal prerogative, or if it was a highly controlled system designed to manage the Sultan's desires, reinforce the harem's hierarchy, and ensure that potential mothers of princes were selected and prepared according to dynastic needs rather than solely personal whim. From your perspective, adorned in silk and jewels, walking down that silent, opulent corridor with your heart in your throat, it feels like an intensely personal moment caught within the gears of a massive, impersonal machine. The walk seems to take forever, or perhaps it's over in an instant. You reach a final, heavily guarded door. The eunuch escort pauses, perhaps exchanges a quiet word with the guards or attendants stationed there. This is it. The culmination of the preparation, the end of the journey from the communal sleeping quarters to the threshold of the Sultan's private world. You take a deep breath, smelling the expensive perfume on your skin, feeling the weight of the jewelry, acutely aware of the eunuch waiting impassively beside you. The door is about to open. The night of destiny is about to begin. The heavily guarded door to the Sultan's private apartments swings open, and you step across the threshold, leaving the familiar sounds and smells of the harem behind. The air here is different, warmer, richer, thick with the scent of expensive incense and exotic flowers. The silence is profound, broken only by the soft rustle of your silk robes and the quiet click of the door closing behind you, sealing you in a world within a world. Your eunuch escort remains outside or perhaps just inside the door, a silent sentry. You are, for this moment, utterly alone with the Sultan. This isn't a simple bedroom, it's a suite of rooms, lavishly decorated with the finest materials the Empire can command. Walls covered in intricate Iznik tiles depicting floral patterns or geometric designs, ceilings painted with miniature scenes or gilded motifs, floors covered in plush carpets from Persia or Anatolia. Soft light filters in from unseen windows or is cast by ornate lamps, creating an intimate, slightly mysterious atmosphere. It's like walking into a museum exhibit dedicated to extreme luxury, except everything is functional and someone very important is waiting for you. And there he is. The Sultan. The man who holds absolute power over your life, and the lives of millions. He might be seated on a divan, perhaps reading, or being attended to by a few trusted servants. He is likely dressed in comfortable but still luxurious robes. This isn't the formal, awe-inspiring figure you might see in public processions. This is the man in his private sanctuary. You perform the deep bow, the elaborate curtsy you were taught, your head lowered, your heart pounding. You don't look directly at him unless he invites you to. Etiquette here is paramount. A misstep in protocol could ruin everything before it even begins. It's like meeting your partner's parents for the first time, but if they don't like you, you might get sent back to the provincial village you came from. The interaction that follows depends entirely on the Sultan's mood and personality. He might offer you a seat, perhaps on the divan beside him, or on a cushion nearby. He might ask you questions about your homeland, your skills, remember those lessons in music and poetry, your thoughts. This is your chance to demonstrate that you are more than just a beautiful face, that you are intelligent, witty, and engaging. You speak softly, choosing your words carefully, remembering everything you've been taught about grace and deference. You might be asked to sing, to play an instrument, or to recite poetry. Your performance here is crucial. It's not just about entertaining him, it's about connecting with him on a level beyond the purely physical. This was a key function of the harem. It was meant to provide the Sultan with companionship and intellectual stimulation, not just sexual partners. If the evening progresses favorably, and the Sultan is pleased, you might spend the entire night in his chambers. This is the night of destiny that every concubine dreams of, or perhaps dreads. The physical intimacy is, of course, a part of it, but the significance goes far beyond that. Spending the night is the clearest indication of the Sultan's favor, a public, within the harem, acknowledgement that you have caught his eye in a meaningful way. It elevates your status immediately upon your return to the harem the next morning. You are no longer just an odalisque, you are now, at minimum, a gozda, a favorite. This comes with tangible benefits: better living quarters, finer clothes, servants, and a higher allowance. It's like getting upgraded to first class, but the airline also gives you a personal assistant and a new wardrobe. The night itself, in the opulent quiet of the Sultan's private rooms, would be a mix of intimacy, vulnerability, and the overwhelming weight of historical possibility. Every moment is significant. Will this lead to another summons? Will this night result in a pregnancy? The hope of bearing the Sultan a child, especially a son, is the most powerful driver of ambition in the harem, for it guarantees your security and elevates you to a level of power and influence previously unimaginable. If you bear a son, you could one day become a Khaden and potentially even the Valide Sultan yourself, wielding power that shapes the empire. That's a pretty big potential return on one night's investment. When morning arrives, the ritual of departure is as formalized as the arrival. You would be escorted back to your previous quarters, or perhaps new, better ones if your status has already been elevated. The eunuchs would again facilitate this transition, ensuring discretion and order. You might be given gifts, fine fabrics, jewelry, coins, outward signs of the Sultan's pleasure and your newfound favor. Your return to the harem would be noted by everyone. Whispers would follow you, eyes would watch you, gauging the success of your night. The competition doesn't end with a night with the Sultan. In many ways, it intensifies. Now you are a potential rival, a woman who has achieved what many others desperately desire. A mainstream historical fact is that spending a night with the Sultan was the primary way for a concubine to elevate her status within the harem hierarchy, moving from the general pool of odalisques to a recognized favorite, and potentially higher ranks if she continued to find favor or bore children. This process was central to the harem's function as a mechanism for producing heirs and managing the Sultan's personal life. A quirky tidbit related to leaving the Sultan's chambers. According to some accounts, upon leaving, the woman would walk backwards out of the door as a sign of respect, never turning her back on the Sultan until she was fully out of his sight. Imagine trying to navigate an unfamiliar, opulent palace hallway while walking backwards in silk robes. That sounds like a recipe for a very ungraceful exit. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's choices of concubines were primarily based on genuine affection and personal connection, or if they were often influenced by political considerations, the recommendations of the Valide Sultan or powerful eunuchs, and the strategic need to favor women who seemed likely to produce strong, healthy heirs from suitable backgrounds, though the concept of background for purchased women was fluid. Was it true love, or just dynastic eugenics? Probably a bit of both, depending on the Sultan and the woman. For you, the newcomer, this night is likely still a distant prospect. But living in the harem means living with the constant possibility of this night. Every lesson, every interaction, every effort to present yourself well is, in some way, preparation for this potential moment. The energy of the harem is charged with this anticipation. And while this specific night of destiny might not be yours tonight, understanding its significance is key to understanding the world you now inhabit. Because the next crucial step, if such a night were to happen, is the possibility of motherhood, and that changes the game entirely. The morning after a night with the Sultan is a strange mix of exhaustion, relief, and intense uncertainty. You are escorted back, maybe not to your old shared room, but perhaps a slightly better one, still not private, but a step up. You're given gifts, a clear sign of the Sultan's favor. But the real waiting game has just begun. One night, even a successful one, doesn't guarantee anything permanent. The Sultan has many women, many demands on his time and attention. Your status has risen slightly, you are now a gozde, a favorite in his eye, but this position is precarious. It depends entirely on his continued interest, and the fierce competition from literally hundreds of other women who also desire his attention. It's like winning one round of a reality show competition, but the next elimination could be just around the corner, and everyone else suddenly sees you as a threat. Weeks turn into months, filled with the same routines: lessons, meals, courtyard socializing, interactions with eunuchs, navigating the hierarchy. You perform your duties, attend to your new, slightly elevated status with grace, and wait. And hope. The hope is for one thing, primarily, a child. Because while the Sultan's favor can elevate you temporarily, bearing him a child, especially a son, is the single most powerful, most transformative event that can happen in a concubine's life. It is the difference between being a temporary favorite and becoming a permanent, indispensable part of the dynasty. The first hint might be subtle: a missed cycle, a strange craving, a wave of nausea in the morning. You share this information cautiously, perhaps only with a trusted Kalfa or a close friend, if you've managed to forge such a bond in this competitive environment. The news is received with hushed excitement and intense scrutiny. Is it real? Is she truly pregnant? Confirmation comes, perhaps after a visit from the harem's physician. And when it does, it sends ripples throughout the harem. You are pregnant with the Sultan's child. It's like a corporate press release announcing a major merger, except you are the product and the future CEO is currently the size of a lentil. If the child is a son, the transformation is immediate and dramatic. Your status is no longer just favorite. You are now a potential Khaden, a consort, and the mother of a potential future sultan. You would be moved to significantly larger, more luxurious apartments, often a suite of rooms with your own courtyard, away from the communal living areas. These apartments would be furnished with the finest carpets, silks, and furniture. You would be given a large staff of servants, other odalisks assigned to attend to your every need, kalfas to manage your household, and eunuchs for security and communication. Your allowance would increase dramatically, giving you access to finer clothing, jewelry, and food. You would no longer attend communal meals or lessons. Your education and daily life would be tailored to your new, elevated position. It's like going from a shared dorm room to a penthouse suite with a full staff and an unlimited expense account, all because you're expecting. The respect and deference shown to you change overnight. Other women, even some kalfas, would now treat you with reverence. Your word carries weight. You are no longer just navigating the hierarchy. You are a significant figure within it, a satellite with its own gravitational pull. Your life becomes centered around the health and well-being of your unborn child. You would be given special foods, seen by the best physicians, and protected fiercely. The Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, would take a particular interest in you, as your child is her grandchild and the future of the dynasty. Her patronage becomes incredibly valuable, offering a layer of protection in a place where danger can lurk beneath the surface of opulence. The birth of a son, a Said Saad prince, is a moment of immense celebration and political significance. Cannons would fire from the palace walls, announcing the birth to the city. Within the harem, there would be feasting and congratulations. Your status solidifies further. You are now officially the mother of a prince, a position of undeniable power and influence. You might be elevated to the rank of Khaden, one of the Sultan's official consorts, though this wasn't always automatic and the number of Khadens was limited. But even without the formal title immediately, your position as mother of a Said Saad guarantees your security and grants you significant privileges. It's like giving birth and immediately getting appointed to the board of directors. If the child is a daughter, a sultana princess, your status also rises significantly, but not to the same political height as the mother of a prince. Mothers of princesses received better apartments, larger allowances, and staff, and were highly respected. Their daughters could be married off to powerful pashas and statesmen, forging important political alliances. However, the intense focus in the harem was always on producing male heirs for the succession. So, while motherhood guaranteed a much better life than remaining a simple odalisk, the gender of the child made a crucial difference in the level of power and security achieved. A mainstream historical fact about the Ottoman harem is that the birth of a son to a concubine was the most significant event in her life and the primary way for her to achieve lasting power and security within the imperial household, potentially rising to the rank of Khaden and wielding considerable influence through her son. Your daily life as the mother of a young prince changes entirely. Your focus shifts from self-improvement and navigating social dynamics for your own advancement to protecting and nurturing your son. The competition doesn't disappear, it merely changes form. Now you are not just competing for the Sultan's attention, you are competing on behalf of your son, vying for resources, influence, and protection against the mothers of other princes, who are now your primary rivals. It's like the competition has moved from The Bachelor to Game of Thrones, and your baby is the key player. A quirky tidbit related to the birth of a prince is the tradition of the Golden Road, Altın Yol. This was a specific corridor in the harem, supposedly sprinkled with gold coins on special occasions. While perhaps not literally paved with gold every time, the Sultan would use this route to visit the apartments of the mothers of his sons after their birth, bringing gifts and confirming his recognition and favor. Imagine getting visited by the boss, and he literally leaves a trail of money behind him. Historians still argue whether the system that centered a woman's status and power on her ability to produce male heirs was primarily a pragmatic solution for dynastic continuity in a polygamous system, or if it was an inherently dehumanizing structure that reduced women to their reproductive capacity, regardless of their talents or intelligence. From your perspective, holding your newborn son, surrounded by luxury and attendance, feeling both immense love and the heavy weight of responsibility, it feels like a complex mix of both, a life transformed by biology into a political game. Your days are now filled with the sounds of a nursery, the concerns of a mother, and the constant awareness of the political currents swirling around your child. You are no longer just surviving, you are actively participating, however indirectly, in the future of the empire. The next phase of your life is dedicated to raising this young prince, guiding him, protecting him from rivals, and preparing him for a potential future on the throne, a task that will demand all your intelligence, charm, and political savvy. Your life has been fundamentally reshaped. The days of communal sleeping quarters, basic meals, and general lessons feel like a distant past, a hazy memory from another lifetime. You are no longer an Asami, no longer just an odalisk, not even just a Gozda or Iqbal hoping for favor. You are now Valide Saitzad, the mother of a prince, a potential future sultan. Your status is secured, your apartments are luxurious, your staff is large, and your daily life is entirely centered around the small, demanding, and incredibly important human being who calls you an mother. It's like getting a massive promotion, but your new job title is Future Emperor's Mom. And the job description is basically 24/7 bodyguard, tutor, and political strategist for a toddler. The morning ritual is no longer about preparing yourself for the possibility of the Sultan's call. Now, it's about preparing your son for his day. His apartments are adjacent to yours, a suite designed for a young royal, complete with nurseries, playrooms, and small study areas. Attendants are always present, ready to bathe him, dress him in miniature versions of imperial robes, and bring him his meals. But you are the central figure, overseeing his care, ensuring his comfort, and beginning the long process of shaping him into a man fit to rule. You spend time with him in the mornings, watching him play, talking to him, establishing that crucial bond. These moments of maternal intimacy are precious, a quiet counterpoint to the constant political undercurrents that define your new reality. Raising a Saitzad in the harem was an intensely competitive and often dangerous undertaking. You are acutely aware that your son is not the Sultan's only son. There are other princes, born to other mothers, who are your son's rivals for the throne. Their mothers are now your primary competitors, vying for the Sultan's attention for their sons, for resources, for influence, and for the critical support of powerful figures like the Valide Sultan and the chief black eunuch. Every interaction with another mother of a prince is tinged with caution. Are they allies? Are they rivals? Can they be trusted? It's like being in a very high-stakes playgroup where everyone is secretly plotting to get their kid into the best preschool, except the best preschool is the imperial throne and the admissions process involves fratricide. Protection is paramount. While open hostility within the harem walls was theoretically forbidden, the history of the Ottoman dynasty is rife with examples of princes being eliminated by their brothers upon accession to the throne. Your greatest fear is for your son's safety. You rely heavily on your loyal staff and the eunuchs assigned to your household for security. You watch who comes near your son, who talks to him, what he eats. Suspicion is a constant companion. You teach your son to be careful, to trust few people outside your immediate circle. It's a heavy burden to place on a young child, but survival dictates it. A mainstream historical fact about the Ottoman dynasty is the practice of fratricide, where upon a new sultan's accession, his brothers were often executed to prevent civil war over succession. This brutal policy created an environment of intense anxiety and competition among the mothers of princes in the harem, as their sons' lives were literally at stake. Education for your prince is crucial, and you oversee it closely. While tutors, men, often scholars or military figures, always accompanied by eunuchs when in the harem, would be brought in to teach him languages, Ottoman Turkish, Arabic, Persian, history, geography, mathematics, and potentially military strategy and horsemanship, In designated areas outside the harem, you guide his curriculum and ensure he is excelling. You want him to be intelligent, capable, and charismatic, qualities that will make him a strong candidate for the throne and help him gain favor with the sultan and important court figures. Your own education, remember those lessons in languages and history? They suddenly feel incredibly relevant as you discuss his studies with his tutors and test his knowledge. It's like homeschooling your kid for the Ivy League, except the Ivy League is controlling an empire. You also teach him the complex etiquette of the court, how to interact with his father, the sultan, and how to navigate the social world of the harem and the wider palace. You present him to the sultan regularly, dressing him in his finest clothes, coaching him on what to say and how to behave. These visits are critical opportunities for your son to build a relationship with his father, and for you to subtly advocate for your son's position without appearing overly ambitious. It's a delicate dance, balancing maternal pride with the need for political subtlety. Your own relationship with the sultan continues, though perhaps on a different footing now. You are no longer just a concubine seeking favor, you are the respected mother of his son. You might spend time with him discussing your son's progress, or offering quiet counsel on matters he chooses to share. Your influence grows, not just through your personal connection with the sultan, but through your position as the mother of a potential heir. This influence can extend beyond the harem walls. Powerful viziers and court officials might seek your patronage, sending you gifts and hoping for your support in their own political maneuverings. You are now a player in the larger political game, using your position within the harem to build a network of allies outside it. Remember those whispers of power and intrigue from earlier? Now you're not just hearing them, you're potentially participating in them. The competition among the mothers of princes could manifest in various ways, vying for the sultan's favor, seeking advantageous marriages for their daughters, your son's half-sisters, trying to undermine the reputation of rival princes or their mothers, and building factions of support among the eunuchs and harem staff. It was a constant, low-level conflict, sometimes erupting into open clashes or accusations. Your life is a tightrope walk, protecting your son while navigating this treacherous landscape. A quirky tidbit about the education of young princes within the harem is that they were often given miniature versions of military equipment, like small swords and bows, and taught basic martial skills from a young age, preparing them conceptually for their potential future roles as military leaders, even while living within the secluded female world. Imagine a toddler practicing sword fighting in a silk robe. Adorable, but also slightly terrifying given the context. Historians still argue whether the intense competition among the mothers of princes, fueled by the policy of fratricide, was a destabilizing force within the Ottoman court, encouraging plotting and intrigue, or if it inadvertently contributed to the selection of stronger, more politically astute rulers by forcing princes and their mothers to develop cunning and resilience from a young age. Was it chaos or a brutal form of meritocracy? Probably both, depending on who you ask and who ended up on the throne. Your days are filled with the demands of motherhood and the pressures of palace politics. You watch your son grow, seeing in him the potential future of the empire, and feeling the immense weight of responsibility for his survival and success. Every decision you make, every alliance you forge, every word you speak seems to have consequences for his future. You are no longer just living your own life. You are living for your son, dedicating yourself to his protection and advancement in a world where the highest prize comes with the highest risk. This life, centered around a young prince, is perhaps the most powerful, and the most perilous, a woman in the harem could lead. Your life, once focused inward on your own survival, education, and the slender hope of catching the sultan's eye, has now expanded, becoming inextricably linked to the fate of another. Your child, your Saad, is the sun around which your world now revolves. And because he is a potential future sultan, his existence immediately plunges you into the deep, often murky, waters of harem politics and imperial intrigue. You are no longer just an observer of the whispers of power, you are now a central figure, a key player in a game where the stakes are the highest imaginable, the succession to the throne, and potentially, the lives of your son and yourself. It's like joining a book club, but the assigned reading is Machiavelli, and everyone brought knives instead of snacks. The opulent apartments, the dedicated staff, the deference shown to you, These are not just comforts. They are the symbols and tools of your new status. But they also make you a target. The mothers of the other princes, who were once just faces in the crowd or distant figures in the hierarchy, are now your rivals. Their sons are the direct competitors to yours. While outward displays of animosity are strictly forbidden and heavily policed by the eunuchs and senior calphas, the competition manifests in 1,000 subtle ways. It's in the way glances are exchanged in the courtyards you might still occasionally visit, though less often now, your life more contained, in the careful wording of compliments that could also be veiled insults, in the spreading of rumors about your son's health or character, or about your own past or perceived weaknesses. You learn to be constantly vigilant, interpreting every interaction, every piece of news, through the lens of how it might affect your son's position. It's like living in a perpetual election season, where everyone is campaigning for their candidate, your son, and trying to dig up dirt on the opposition, the other princes. Your staff, though loyal to you, are also part of this intricate network. They hear things, see things, and can be invaluable sources of information, or potential conduits for leaks and misinformation orchestrated by your rivals. You must cultivate their loyalty, rewarding discretion and punishing betrayal, while always being aware that even the most trusted servant could potentially be compromised. The eunuchs attached to your household are particularly important. They are your link to the outside world, your security detail, and your avenue for communication with powerful figures outside the harem, including the Sultan himself and his ministers. Building good relationships with key eunuchs, especially those close to the Valide Sultan or the chief black eunuch, is paramount. Their patronage can offer protection, facilitate communication, and provide crucial intelligence. It's like having a really well-connected personal security team who also happen to be the palace's internal spies. Seeking patronage is a vital part of navigating this political landscape. While the Sultan's favor is the ultimate source of your power, the support of other influential figures can be equally critical, especially in times when the Sultan's attention is focused elsewhere. The most important patron is, without question, the Valide Sultan, your son's grandmother. Her influence over the Sultan is immense, and her protection can shield you and your son from many dangers. You cultivate this relationship carefully, showing her respect, seeking her advice, and presenting your son to her regularly so that she can bond with him and see his potential. But even the Valide Sultan's favor is not absolute. She has other grandchildren, the other princes, and other concerns. You are just one of the mothers seeking her support, and you must demonstrate why your son is the most deserving. The political game also involves forging alliances. While the mothers of other princes are your rivals, not all relationships are adversarial. You might find common ground with the mother of a younger prince, or a mother whose son seems less likely to contend for the throne. These alliances are often fragile and based on mutual interest, perhaps sharing information, supporting each other against a common rival, like a particularly ambitious new favorite of the Sultan, or pooling resources. But you must always be cautious. Alliances can shift, and today's friend could become tomorrow's enemy if circumstances change. It's like forming study groups in college, except instead of cramming for a history test, you're trying to survive a historical power struggle, and your study partners might try to trip you on the way to the exam. Your son's education and presentation become political acts. You push for him to receive the best tutors, to excel in his studies, to demonstrate intelligence, piety, and potential leadership qualities when he is presented to the Sultan or other important figures. Every positive report about your son is a point scored against your rivals. You also use opportunities like religious festivals or palace celebrations to ensure your son is seen, that he makes a good impression, and that his existence and potential are reinforced in the minds of the court. Whispers and rumors are the currency of harem politics. A carefully placed rumor could undermine a rival mother's reputation, cast doubt on a rival prince's legitimacy or health, or even influence the Sultan's mood or decisions. You must be adept at discerning truth from falsehood, and knowing which whispers to ignore and which to act upon, and perhaps, when necessary, at subtly guiding the flow of information yourself. It's a constant information war, fought with hushed voices and knowing glances rather than armies. A mainstream historical fact about the Ottoman harem is that it was a significant center of political power and intrigue, particularly during periods known as the Sultanate of Women, roughly the 16th and 17th centuries, when women of the harem, especially the Valide Sultan and powerful consorts, wielded immense influence over state affairs through their relationships with the Sultan and their control over palace resources and appointments. This wasn't just domestic drama, it had real-world consequences for the empire. The danger is ever present. While overt violence within the harem was rare, the threat of poisoning, sabotage, or framing a rival for a transgression was always there, lurking beneath the surface of daily life. You rely on your loyal staff to taste your food, to watch over your son, and to report anything suspicious. The atmosphere of constant vigilance is exhausting, a low-level anxiety that never truly dissipates. Remember the feeling of being watched by the eunuchs? Now you feel watched by everyone, and you are watching them back. A quirky tidbit related to harem intrigue is the use of coded messages or secret symbols woven into textiles or jewelry, allowing women to communicate with each other or with the outside world without their messages being understood by those who might intercept them. Imagine sending a coded message to an ally via a strategically placed flower in your hair. Historians still argue whether the intense political maneuvering within the harem was a natural consequence of the system of succession and the concentration of power, or if it was exacerbated by external political factions who sought to influence the court by cultivating allies within the sultan's household, effectively using the harem as a proxy battlefield. Your days as the mother of a prince are a masterclass in subtle power dynamics, alliance building, and constant vigilance. You are no longer just a concubine hoping to survive, you are a political figure, dedicated to ensuring your son's survival and positioning him for a future on the throne. The whispers of power and intrigue are not just background noise anymore, they are the very air you breathe, and you must learn to navigate their currents if you and your son are to survive and potentially thrive in this gilded, dangerous world. You've seen the peak of harem ambition, the transformation from a purchased concubine to the powerful mother of a potential future sultan, living in luxury and navigating the treacherous waters of imperial politics. It's a dramatic ascent, the stuff of legends and historical dramas. But here's the reality check, the one that hangs unspoken in the air for the vast majority of women within these walls. That path, the climb to Kaidan or Valide Saitsad, was incredibly rare. For every woman who reached those dizzying heights of power and luxury, there were hundreds, perhaps thousands, who did not. You, if you hadn't somehow managed that miraculous ascent to motherhood of a prince, would likely find your life taking a very different, less dramatic, and perhaps quieter course. Your days would settle into a routine defined by service and specific duties, rather than political maneuvering centered around a royal child. You would remain an odalisque, a member of the general body of harem women, assigned to various tasks essential to the functioning of this enormous household. Remember those lessons you took in the morning? If you showed aptitude, you might be assigned to work in the harem schoolrooms, assisting teachers or helping younger novices with their studies. If you were skilled with your hands, you might work in the sewing rooms, helping to create or repair the elaborate garments worn by the sultan, his family, and the higher-ranking women. Perhaps you'd work in the laundries, managing the immense task of washing and pressing the endless supply of palace linens and clothing. Or maybe you'd be assigned to the vast kitchens, helping prepare the hundreds of meals served daily. It's like being a general employee in a massive corporation, finding your niche in accounting, HR, or the cafeteria, except your office is a palace, and your colleagues are all potential rivals. This life of service wasn't necessarily one of hardship or deprivation. As an odalisque, you were still housed within the palace walls, fed, clothed, and cared for. Your basic needs were met in a way that might have been impossible for many women outside the palace. You continued to live in communal quarters, perhaps slightly better ones as you gained seniority, but still lacking true privacy. Your days were structured and predictable, a constant cycle of duties, communal meals, and time spent in the courtyards. You would still interact with the eunuchs, following their instructions and navigating their authority, and you would still be aware of the hierarchy above you, deferring to Kalfas, Ustas, and the higher-ranking consorts. But the intense, high-stakes competition for the Sultan's direct attention would likely fade into the background of your daily concerns. You might still hope, of course, that some twist of fate would bring you to his notice, but the probability would decrease with every year that passed, particularly as younger, newer women arrived in the harem. Your focus would shift to finding a stable, comfortable place within the harem's internal structure, perhaps aiming to become a Khalfa or Usta yourself, rising through the ranks of the managerial staff rather than the ranks of the consorts. This was a respected path, offering authority, better living conditions, and a secure position within the palace administration. It was like aiming for middle management instead of the C-suite, a much more attainable, albeit less glamorous, goal. However, for many women who did not rise high within the harem's internal administration or catch the Sultan's lasting attention, there was another potential path outside the palace walls: marriage. The Sultan often arranged marriages for his concubines with loyal officials, generals, or other important figures within the empire. This wasn't a punishment. It was often seen as a reward for loyal service within the harem and a way for the Sultan to strengthen ties with his key men by integrating women who had been part of the imperial household into their families. It was like the company's CEO setting you up on a date with a successful business partner to solidify a merger, only slightly less awkward. Being married out of the harem offered a different kind of life. You would leave the gilded cage, gaining a degree of personal freedom and privacy that was impossible within the palace. You would become the mistress of your own household, potentially a large and wealthy one depending on the status of your husband. You might raise a family, manage servants, and participate in the social life of the empire's elite, albeit outside the secluded world of the palace harem. For some, this was a highly desirable outcome, a chance for a normal life and a family, free from the constant pressure and competition of the harem. But this path also came with its own challenges. Leaving the security and luxury of the palace meant entering a world that could be unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Your husband might be kind and loving, or he might not. You would be dependent on his status and fortunes, which could rise or fall depending on the volatile politics of the imperial court. If your husband fell out of favor, was exiled, or died, your own position could become precarious. You would also lose the unique status and protection that came with being a resident of the Sultan's harem. It was like leaving a secure, if slightly stifling, job with great benefits for a startup, potentially exciting, but definitely riskier. The Sultan usually provided a dowry for these marriages, ensuring that the woman was provided for and that her husband understood he was marrying someone who had served the imperial household. These dowries could be substantial, including money, property, and servants. A mainstream historical fact is that marrying harem women to loyal officials was a common practice in the Ottoman Empire, serving both to manage the harem's population and to create bonds of loyalty between the Sultan and his administrators by essentially making them family members by marriage. Life as a married woman outside the harem would be vastly different from your years within its walls. You would no longer be subject to the strict communal routines, the constant surveillance by eunuchs, though your husband would likely have his own household staff, and perhaps eunuchs, or the intense, direct competition for the Sultan's favor. You would have a degree of autonomy over your daily life and your household. However, you would also lose the unique access to power and influence that the harem provided. You might still maintain connections with people inside the palace, perhaps through former friends or eunuchs, but your primary sphere of influence would shift to your husband's world. A quirky tidbit is that some harem women who were married out maintained correspondence with friends or former attendants still within the palace, sharing news and gossip between the two worlds. Imagine getting letters from your palace friend like, "OMG, you won't believe what happened with the Valide Sultan's cat." Historians still argue whether being married out of the harem represented a form of liberation for these women, offering them a chance for a more conventional life and family, or if it was simply another way the Sultan exercised control over the women who had served him, using them as pawns in political alliances and effectively transferring ownership from the imperial household to a loyal subject. Regardless of the woman's personal desires. Was it freedom or just a transfer of gilded cages? Ultimately, the path your life took within the harem, or beyond it, was largely determined by fate, luck, and the complex interplay of power and personality that governed this unique world. For the vast majority, the journey was one of service, routine, and perhaps eventually, a life outside the palace walls, a path far removed from the dramatic heights reached by the mothers of princes, but one that offered its own form of security and a different kind of future. You understand now that the harem wasn't just one experience. It was a multitude of lives lived under one very large, very ornate roof, each shaped by the rigid structure and the ever-present possibility, or impossibility, of advancement. You've navigated the mornings, the baths, the meals, the lessons, the courtyards, the eunuchs, the hierarchy, the terrifying possibility of the sultan's call, the life-altering reality of motherhood, and the perilous world of harem politics. You've seen the gilded cage from the bottom up and, for some, the top down. You've understood that for most, life was one of routine and service, perhaps culminating in a marriage outside the palace walls. But this entire world, this intricate, self-contained universe of women and eunuchs ruled by the distant figure of the Sultan, didn't exist in a vacuum forever. The Ottoman Empire itself, the vast power structure that supported this unique institution, was changing. And as the empire evolved, declined, and eventually disappeared, so too did the world of the harem. The echoes of its existence linger, shaping how we imagine this place today, but the reality of living within its walls faded into history. The harem as it existed for centuries, particularly the highly formalized and politically influential harem of the Topkapi Palace during its peak, didn't abruptly vanish overnight. Its decline was a gradual process, tied to broader changes within the Ottoman Empire. As the empire modernized and adopted westernizing reforms in the 19th century, institutions like the harem, which symbolized a secluded, traditional, and often misunderstood aspect of Ottoman life, came under scrutiny. Ideas about family structure, women's roles, and public versus private life began to shift, influenced by European norms. Sultans started favoring a more westernized lifestyle, sometimes choosing to live with a single wife in a more conventional family setting outside the confines of the old palace harem. It was like the empire decided to ditch the old-school corporate headquarters and move to a modern, open-plan office, and the harem was definitely not open-plan. The practice of bringing women into the harem as slaves or purchased concubines also declined over time, particularly after the abolition of slavery became a more widespread international movement, and was eventually addressed, however imperfectly, within the Ottoman Empire itself in the later 19th century. While women continued to live in the palace and serve the Sultan, the system became less about a constant influx of new concubines and more about established consorts and female relatives. The rigid hierarchy and the intense competition for the Sultan's attention through reproduction began to lessen in importance, replaced by different forms of courtly life. The move from Topkapi Palace to new, more European-style palaces like Dolmabahce Palace along the Bosphorus in the mid-19th century also signaled a change. These new palaces were designed differently, less focused on the vast, secluded harem complex of the old palace. While they still had harem sections, they were often smaller and integrated more closely with the Sultan's private apartments in a way that reflected changing architectural and social ideas. It was like moving from a sprawling, ancient estate to a modern mansion, still huge and luxurious, but with a different flow and purpose. The final official abolition of the Sultanate in 1922, following the establishment of the Republic of Turkey, marked the definitive end of the imperial harem as an institution. The remaining members of the imperial family, including the women of the harem, were eventually exiled or dispersed. The vast harem complex at Topkapi Palace was emptied, its inhabitants scattered, its unique world brought to a close. Imagine getting laid off from the most exclusive, weirdest job in the world, and your severance package is basically a one-way ticket out of the country. For the women who were still living in the harem when these changes occurred, the transition would have been profound and likely challenging. Many had spent their entire lives within the palace walls, knowing no other world. They were highly skilled in courtly arts and fluent in palace etiquette, but perhaps ill-prepared for life outside, without the structure, security, and status the harem provided. Some may have had families or connections to turn to if they had been married out previously, but for those who remained within the palace until the end, It meant navigating a completely new reality in a rapidly changing society. Their skills in music, poetry, or languages might have been transferable, but their experience in navigating harem politics, probably less useful on the streets of Istanbul. The legacy of the Ottoman harem is complex and often contradictory. For centuries, it was viewed by outsiders, particularly in Europe, through a lens of exoticism, fantasy, and moral judgment. It became a potent symbol of the mysterious Orient, imagined as a place of boundless sexual license, intrigue, and female oppression. This perception, fueled by travelers' tales, paintings, and later, literature and film, created a powerful and persistent myth of the harem that often bore little resemblance to the lived reality of the women within its walls. It's like the historical equivalent of believing everything you see in a highly dramatized historical miniseries. A mainstream historical fact about the harem's legacy is how heavily it has been shaped by sensationalized Western portrayals, which often focused exclusively on its sexual aspects and overlooked its functions as a highly structured domestic institution, a school, a center of political power for women, and a complex social world with its own rules and dynamics. These external fantasies often overshadowed the internal realities. Within Turkey, the harem's legacy is also debated. For some, it represents a period of Ottoman history that is seen as backward or oppressive, particularly regarding the status of women. For others, it is viewed as a unique institution that, while undeniably hierarchical and controlled, also offered opportunities for social mobility, education, and influence for women who might otherwise have had none. It was a place where women, albeit within a specific, limited sphere, could wield significant power and shape the course of the empire. Historians still argue whether the Ottoman harem should be primarily understood as an institution of female subjugation and control, a gilded prison that denied women autonomy and reduced them to their roles as concubines and mothers, or if it was also, paradoxically, a space that allowed certain women to achieve levels of education, power, and influence that were exceptional for their time, even compared to women in European courts. Was it a cage, or a highly unusual ivory tower with a very specific career path? The physical spaces of the harem at Topkapi Palace remain today, open to visitors, offering a glimpse into the architecture and luxury that defined this world. As you walk through the courtyards, the corridors, the apartments of the Valide Sultan or the consorts, you can almost hear the echoes of the past, the splash of fountains, the soft rustle of silk, the hushed whispers of conversation, the distant sound of music. But the life that filled these spaces is gone. The intricate social dance, the intense competition, the quiet routines of service, the moments of joy, sorrow, ambition, and fear, these exist now only in historical records, scholarly debates, and the myths that continue to surround this most famous of imperial institutions. A quirky tidbit about the end of the harem is that some of the women who were exiled or dispersed adapted remarkably well to life outside the palace, using the skills they had acquired within its walls, such as languages, music, or management, to build new lives for themselves in different countries. It turns out that managing a massive imperial household gives you some pretty solid transferable skills. As you drift away from the images of silk robes, watchful eunuchs, and gilded cages, remember that the story of the harem is not just one simple narrative of oppression or exotic fantasy. It was a complex, multifaceted world, home to thousands of women whose lives were shaped by its unique rules and opportunities. Their days were filled with routine, learning, connection, competition, and for a few, the chance to influence an empire. It was a world unlike any other, a hidden heart of a vast power, and though its physical existence has faded, its echoes continue to resonate through history, inviting us to look beyond the myths and try to understand the human lives lived within its legendary walls. Now let the images of the palace fade, the sounds soften, the air grows still. You've journeyed through a day, and a lifetime, in a world of secrets and silk, ambition and confinement. The whispers are quieting, the footsteps receding. There are no more lessons to attend, no more hierarchies to navigate, no more calls to await. The long day is done, the palace settling into a deep, quiet rest that has lasted for centuries. Your mind can let go of the gilded walls, the watchful eyes, the weight of history. Feel the comfort beneath you, the stillness around you. Breathe softly. Let the last echoes of the harem fade completely, leaving nothing but peace and quiet. Sleep now,